There are two new flippy boys in town and none of them is called a Galaxy. Yes, I'm talking about the Razer 40 Ultra and the Oppo Find N2 Flip. And the best part is both are priced exactly the same. So which one of these flipping foldables should you consider? Should you consider the Moto or the Oppo? Let's find out in this detailed comparison. Well, if you're here for the very first time, I'm Arshad, you're watching Track Into English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now, the design is identical for the most part. Both of these phones can fold into a pocketable squarish form factor. But the Razer 40 Ultra has a tighter feeling hinge despite the fact that, both these phones are rated for 4 lakh folds. But when you place these flat on a table and when you open them up, Motorola has the ability to actually stay and hold its position at a much steeper angle compared to the Find N2 Flip, which sort of flops and falls down. And you know what? The hinge on the Find N2 Flip definitely feels more loose compared to this. Look at how tight it is. And look at this. It's flopping around. TLDR, I have more confidence in opening and closing the Razer 40 Ultra compared to the Find N2 Flip. Now, the rest of the sturdiness factor of the Razer 40 Ultra is further enhanced by the fact that you get Corning's Gorilla Glass Victus protection not only on the cover screen, but also on the glass that is used in the construction of the phone, basically on the rear of the phone. And that apart, you also have a nice tough aluminum Series 7000 frame as well. On the Find N2 Flip, you do get an aluminum frame and the cover screen has Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection, but the rest of the glass that is used to make up the phone, that doesn't have any sort of glass protection, any Corning protection as such. And wait for it, Motorola also offers you a basic IP52 rating, whereas Oppo doesn't. And at least some sort of dust protection should have been possible on the Find N2 Flip, considering the fact that when it is closed, there's barely any gap between the two folding halves. In fact, both of these phones don't have any gap whatsoever, and that's the way the hinge is constructed. The in-hand feel of the Razer 40 Ultra is better compared to the Oppo Find N2 Flip. It's thinner when folded and unfolded and lighter as well compared to Oppo. But in the Find N2 Flip's defense, it has a larger battery inside, so that's something that you have to keep in mind. But there's no defense for the fact that both these phones are extremely slippery to hold and use, and you will have to actually make use of the inbox case that you get with the phones. Also, Motorola does offer you the Pantone Viva Magenta color of the year, which has a vegan leather back, and that adds to the grippiness of the phone, so you don't have to generally use a case with it. Overall, when it comes to the design, the build quality, and the in-hand feel, I'll any day pick the Razer over the Find N2 Flip. Even the display experience is better on the Razer 40 Ultra. Let's actually take a look at the outer screen experience first. On the Razer 40 Ultra, you get a larger, all-encompassing 3.6-inch OLED display, which has a peak brightness of 1100 nits and a refresh rate of 144 Hz as well. But more importantly, the pixel density of 413 ppi is actually matched with the one on the inside screen, so it's a very pixel dense display. In comparison, the Find N2 Flip has a 3.2-inch display on the outside and a peak brightness of only 800 nits. Also, the refresh rate is only 60 Hz. Plus, the pixel density of 250 ppi on the outer screen is not a match for the inner screen's pixel density of 403 ppi. The pixel density is just way better on the Razer 40 Ultra, whether it is on the inner screen or the outer cover screen. But most importantly, on the Razer 40 Ultra, while you can run most of your favorite Android apps on the outside screen, it's not possible on the Oppo Find N2 Flip. This means that you can only see a wallpaper, lock screen, and a few predefined widgets. So you have widgets for camera, weather, audio recording, and there is a new widget that has been added for Spotify as well, which means that Oppo has to work exclusively with apps to bring their widgets to Oppo's cover screen, and it's happening at a very slow pace at the moment. There are quick responses that you can set for messages, but you can't make any calls, and of course you can't use any apps. But you can do all of this on the Razer 40 Ultra. You can of course make calls, and you can also respond to texts, emails, and WhatsApp messages because you get a full-sized keyboard that you can work with. And like I mentioned, you can even use apps like Maps and YouTube on the outer screen itself. It's very, very handy. By the way, I've spoken about how cute that Moo lock screen wallpaper is. It interacts and does cute things all throughout the day. Of course, the Find N2 Flip also has interactive pets, but it's not nearly as cool as Moo. Motorola also has a dedicated set of games for the outer cover display, and I have been super addicted to this game called Stacked. It's really fun. And if you're using an app on the outer screen, you can continue using that on the inner screen. In fact, if you're using an app on the inner screen and come to the outer screen, you can continue using that as well. You just need to hit the continue button. By the way, this is also possible on the Find N2 Flip, a basic feature that should be present on all foldables. Considering the outer display is actually so useful, and if you don't have to use the inner display so often, the battery life will also be improved. Plus, since you don't have to open and close the phone every single time you want to use an app, it will improve the longevity of the hinge mechanism. Now, talking about the inner display, it's almost equally sized on both the phones, but you get HDR support on YouTube and Netflix, both only on Oppo, but you get only HDR support on YouTube on the Motorola. However, Oppo's HDR tuning has been done really poorly with absolutely blown out highlights. I don't know what's wrong, but it doesn't look good at all. Take a look at it side by side for yourself. Moreover, you get 165Hz refresh rate on the Razer 40 Ultra, and it's 120Hz on the Find N2 Flip. Of course, the kind of refresh rate differences is not something that you can notice in everyday usage, but technically the display has higher refresh rate on the Razer. Now on both the phones you do get Dolby Atmos sound as well with the stereo speaker setup. Both are tuned very well. Mostly I didn't notice any difference, but Motorola's sound feels slightly richer and more vibrant. Take a listen for yourself and let me know what you guys think. The haptic feedback experience on the Razer 40 Ultra is good, but on the Find N2 Flip is better because of the fact that you get O haptics, and that has been tuned very, very well. It's tighter and it's got a very good feedback as well. Now, both these phones, of course, do not have an in-display fingerprint scanner. You get a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, and both are extremely fast to unlock the phone. No complaints there. But all in all, like I said, the inner display experience and the outer display experience is better on the Razer 40 Ultra. Now, when it comes to software, the Razer 40 Ultra is running its own customary version of MyUX on top of Android 13, which is a basic slight little skin on top of stock Android. Features like Moto Secure, Moto Actions, and ThinkShield security are all present here. Furthermore, there's also Ready For, which lets you connect your phone to a large screen and of course operate it from there itself. But the absolute best part is that there are zero third-party apps. It's a very clean install. You know, when I'm using a Motorola, I always get a feeling that I'm using a premium phone with a premium experience. And Motorola has also promised 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security updates, which of course is a promise that I hope the brand keeps up to. Now on the Find N2 Flip, Oppo promises 4 years of software updates and 5 years of security updates for the ColorOS skin on top of Android 13 that is present right now. But with ColorOS, you do get a lot of third-party apps, unnecessary bloatware like hot apps, hot games, hot free games, share chat, all of which can be either disabled or uninstalled, but it doesn't feel like a premium experience for a flagship foldable phone. That said, the software itself is very well tuned and the animations are smooth. It's pretty seamless that way. But more importantly, the foldable related features like quick replies is very useful, and the fact that you can actually end the call by shutting the phone. This is a feature that I sorely missed on the Razer 40 Ultra. All that said, the overall OS experience on the Razer 40 Ultra is more refined, more polished compared to ColorOS on the Oppo Find N2 Flip. Now talking about performance, you get Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 inside the Razer 40 Ultra and Dimensity 9000 Plus on the Find N2 Flip. For the most part, in synthetic benchmarks, whether it's Antutu or Geekbench, both of these are equally matched. But the Razer 40 Ultra offers slightly better performance in terms of throttling and also heating. What I noticed even in regular usage, not when I was playing games, the Find N2 Flip did throttle slightly more and did get hotter as well. Now you can play games on the inner display of the phone. For example, Call of Duty Mobiles does run at very high graphics and max frame rates. But to be fair, these are not gaming phones per se, but if you want to play a few light games, then all of that works like a charm. And of course, for regular usage, both of these phones are plenty fast and smooth. But yeah, the Razer 40 Ultra does have a slight edge because it doesn't throttle or heat as much as the Find N2 Flip. As for the 5G connectivity and call quality, both are actually absolutely fantastic. Nothing to complain out here. The one area where the Find N2 Flip actually takes a lead over the Razer 40 Ultra is in battery life. So in our testing, battery actually lasted almost a full day with 5 to 10% left in the bank as well, so which is a good thing. But with the Razer 40 Ultra, you get a smaller battery, and that doesn't last as long as the Find N2 Flip. So it lasted us about 18 to 20 hours, but we were using both the inner and the outer display a lot. Now when you do charge the phone, it takes about 1 hour 30 minutes for a full charge using the 30-watt charger support that you get with Motorola. With the Find N2 Flip, it takes about 1 hour for a full charge with the 44-watt charging support that you get with it. So charging speeds are also better. So basically, Motorola has gone for a slimmer design, so they've reduced the size of the battery, whereas Oppo does offer you better battery life. Alright, let's talk about the cameras. On the Find N2 Flip, you get a 50MP primary camera, 8MP ultra wide, and a 32MP selfie camera. On the Razer 40 Ultra, you get a 12MP primary camera, 13MP ultra wide, and a 32MP selfie camera as well. By the way, before I talk about the camera performance, you can actually use these phones in flex mode, and like I mentioned, Motorola can actually stand at 45, 60, 90 degree angles, even 130 for that matter. This is something that the Find N2 Flip cannot do really well. It of course has a flex mode as well, but the flex mode on the Razer 40 Ultra is slightly better if you care for it. Anyway, with the primary camera, what I noticed is that both are fairly detailed, but Oppo tends to over sharpen slightly. Also, the color science on Motorola is closer to natural compared to the punchier tones of Oppo, which does look good and is more social media ready, but I prefer, more natural color science. Oppo's Hasselblad partnership along with the MariSilicon X chip comes in handy for better HDR processing, however. You can see it manages to pull more details from the darker shadow region of the image. People's pictures have decent skin tone on Motorola, but it does smooth out some of the details on the face. Oppo keeps the details intact, but it has a yellow skin problem, as you can see. Portrait algorithm, as far as the semantic segmentation or the edge cutout goes, is good on both the phones. But the depth mapping is more natural feeling on Motorola because it's got a gradual depth blur. Low light primary camera samples are equally matched in terms of pulling in light, but Oppo offers slightly sharper textures in general. And it has noise, but not the kind that's bunched up in blobs like Moto does. But for those who don't care about these tiny details, both are good at low light performance. Oppo is slightly technically better. Even in selfies, Moto skin tones are great. In fact, if you notice, you have a warmer tone on the Oppo selfie, and the shirt color is also punchier than it was actually. Selfie portraits are pretty good on both, but I like Moto slightly more because of the nice depth mapping that you get with it. Low light selfies are also more naturally represented on the Moto as opposed to the whitewashed look of Oppo. Ultra wide angle camera is of better quality on the Razr 40 Ultra because you do get that higher megapixel camera. You get more details and much better color science consistency with the primary camera. In comparison, Oppo doesn't have good consistency. Moreover, ultra wide low light shots offer more details, better exposure, and more information being pulled out from the shadows on the Razr 40 Ultra. Oppo's 8MP ultra wide falls slightly short. My only gripe is Moto should have offered a wider ultra wide angle lens. Video recording is clearly a win for Motorola. Not only do you get the option to shoot 4K 60fps video from the rear camera, you also get to do it with stabilization and better sound recording quality. Oppo only offers 4K 30fps and the stabilization is not as good either.
So I'm shooting a 4K 60fps video using the Motorola Edge 40 Ultra and 4K 30fps on the Find and to Flip. So I'm shooting a 4K 60fps video using the Motorola Edge 40 Ultra and 4K 30fps on the Find and to Flip.
In fact, Moto even offers 4K 60fps from the front camera. That's a proper flagship phone feature. Oppo is still stuck at 1080p 30fps. So yeah, Motorola's camera experience felt more flagship-like to me compared to Oppo's, which was missing out on a few key technical parameters. Now, considering both are priced equally, the Razr 40 Ultra actually feels more polished and advanced as a flip phone experience compared to the Oppo Find and to Flip. In fact, I absolutely loved using the Razr 40 Ultra. It's a fun phone to use, something which I actually said in my previous video of the phone as well. Go check it out if you haven't already. But the big chunk of the charm of using the Razr 40 Ultra is in that cover screen experience. The only areas of concern are the battery life and the charging speeds, which are unequivocally better on the Find and to Flip. If you can live with a slightly lower battery life and slightly slower charging speeds, then I would definitely recommend the Razr 40 Ultra for being a more superior flip phone experience over the Find and to Flip. But if battery life is of most important to you, then the Find and to Flip would be the better choice. So what do you guys think of flip phones? Does anyone in our audience, Track and Take English audience, have a flip phone? I'm really curious. What has your experience been like? Let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.